The least restrictive environment was kind of the cornerstone of the IDEA. As I mentioned earlier, there was a period before this law came into existence where students with special needs were being segregated and separated. They were sent to schools that were different than their non-disabled peers in their neighborhood. Unfortunately, there were some students with special needs that got no education. So Congress changed all that in the mid-70s with this law. And this is kind of a cornerstone of the law, which is, Congress saw that, and educators saw that there's a lot of benefits for educating children with special needs with children that didn't have special needs. There's modeling, there's just, you're going to be in an adult world with a mixture. It's good to start off in the educational setting that way. So that was kind of the foundation for the law. And it holds true today because the placement that the school comes up with after they do the assessments, they look at the areas of need, they look at the goals, they look at the services, the present levels, that placement has to be in the least restrictive environment. What does that mean? Well, it means it has to be in the placement that has the most exposure to non-disabled children as is appropriate. And I use that as is appropriate qualifier because sometimes children with special needs really aren't able to be educated with kids that don't have disabilities. If they've got really severe emotional problems or behaviors, then maybe it's just not really going to work. But there's a lot of situations where it could work. So this is actually from the law. A more restrictive environment is appropriate only if the nature or severity of the disability is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and supports, pay close attention to that, with the use of supplementary aids and supports cannot be achieved satisfactorily. Okay, so let's say you've got a kindergartner with autism and they've got some behavior problems, they've got some attention problems. Does that mean you automatically move that child to a special day class for kids with autism? Not necessarily, because they might be able to be successful in general ed kindergarten if maybe they had aid support or maybe they had a behavior plan. And if they can be successful with that kind of support, or it's reasonable to assess to make that determination, that's what should happen. The school shouldn't move them automatically to a more restrictive setting. A special day class, just so we're clear, is a self-contained program. It can be on a general education campus, but it's a self-contained program where the child spends more than 50% of their day. So it's not to say a school district can't ever move a child to that more restrictive setting, but they have to make this consideration. Could they be successful with aid support? Could they be successful with a behavior plan? And unfortunately, it might be more expedient to move the child to that special day class because everything's already set up. It can be more trouble to create a behavior plan or more trouble to bring in an aid to the general ed kindergarten program. But, that's something that has to be considered, because if that child can be successful in that lesser restrictive setting with those aids and supports, that's where they should be. The other thing I want to say is, it's not an all or nothing approach. It's not like, well, either you're with all disabled children or you're with all non-disabled children. Even if you're in a special day class, for example, because that's where your needs can be met and they can't be met in general ed, even with supports, the school district has to consider, is there a part of the day where they can be with non-disabled children? Can they be with non-disabled children, at lunch or recess, or maybe electives, or maybe they're, strong suit in one academic area like math or written language, and maybe they could be in a gen ed class for that. So the school always has to be thinking about how can we create a program where they can at least get some exposure to non-disabled children.